Okay, part 2. For he himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility, by abolishing the law of commandments expressed in ordinances, that he might create in himself one new man in the place of two, so making peace, and might reconcile us both to God in one body through the cross, thereby killing the hostility. Again, it should be absolutely no surprise that we live in a state of divisiveness, okay? And this goes all the way back to the very beginning, and we see this even here with a reference to Old Testament law. You know, it did a lot to bring the Jewish people together, kind of at this place of judgment and this need for restoration. But at the same time, it also fostered a sense of exclusivity and us versus them, which was not God's intention. But at the same time, it became something that filtered over into the church that Paul now needed to address. And while there is a greater theological significance that Paul is talking about, I want to just look at one aspect of this that we see even in our current contemporary setting. And that is the fact that there are so many of us that at times we have an us versus them mentality. And it turns into bias, prejudice, even racism, between conflicts between denominations. Jesus did not come so that there would be more divisiveness. He came so that there would be unity, and in Christ, in his flesh, he tore down the walls of hostility, killing the hostility, and yet we continue to live in it. I am reminded of what Paul said in his letter to the Philippians. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God something to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. So if Christ in human form didn't count equality with God something to be grasped, then neither can we, especially in terms of how we see other people. You know, the fight against divisiveness begins by refusing to measure people in our own eyes and keep our eyes focused on Jesus. If there are walls and barriers for us and them, then there is evidence that we as individuals and we as a church are not living in Christ the way that he is intended. And I believe with all of my heart that the greatest message to the world of the gospel of Jesus Christ is that we begin to live it out in Christ among ourselves. There is a unity in him. There is freedom in him. And that's the powerful message that will change the world.